acting all high and mighty over just $300. I don't need that chump change." Chuckling, my son and his wife looked down on me, hurling harsh words. I've been supporting them for a decade since they said they were struggling financially. Despite never settling into steady jobs, I bit my tongue and tried to find ways to help. Look at the thanks I get. Why did I even think of helping these people? I believed that someday they'd appreciate my efforts and soften their attitude, but that day never came. Isn't that a clear answer? I can't help but be angry at them for laughing and saying it's not enough, or just pennies, after taking away 10 years of my time and savings. I've dedicated myself to my son and his wife without saying a word, but that ends today. My name is Helen, a homemaker in my 50s. After my husband passed away, I've been living alone. We have a son. After graduating from college, he moved out and now has a family with his wife. They live nearby, but honestly, we aren't on good terms. They're a bit problematic. After college, my son started working at a company where he met his wife. She quit her job upon marrying him, becoming a full-time homemaker. But less than a year later, my son quit his job too, apparently having trouble with his boss. He thought he'd easily find a new job, but life didn't go the way he expected. Despite searching, he couldn't find suitable work and eventually gave up on working altogether. His wife didn't seem interested in working either, and within a few months they fell into financial hardship. To support them, I decided to send them a modest $300 a month. They cried and thanked me for the financial aid. Every day, I hoped they'd get out of their hardship and be able to support themselves. But now, 10 years later, my monthly $300 isn't something they're grateful for. It's become something they think they're entitled to. 1 month was hectic with family events, and I couldn't find time to meet my son and his wife on the day I usually give them their monthly allowance. Late that night, I heard someone knocking loudly at the door. It was my son and his wife. "Mom, we need the allowance on time. Are you starting to forget things because you're getting older?" my son teased. Exhausted and sleepy from several busy days, I said, "I'll give it to you another time. Please go home for now." His wife, her face flushed with anger, snapped, "This is a monthly thing. You need to give it on time. Just because you're my husband's mother doesn't mean you can act this way." And she grabbed me by the collar. Shocked by the sudden confrontation, I handed over the already prepared $300 to my son and his wife. If you just handed it over honestly from the start, this wouldn't have happened. I don't want to use physical force with you either. Yeah, listen to us and behave. If you ever lose your mind, we're the ones who will be looking after you. It wouldn't hurt to get in our good books now, right? I was infuriated by their audacity, but if I retaliated and upset their pride, they might never be able to stand on their own 2 feet again, just like when my son had to quit his job. Swallowing my feelings, I just smiled, apologized, and did as they asked. Looking back, I believe I should have stood my ground then, but I had an overwhelming desire for them to somehow get back on track, which made me feel powerless. The unpleasant memories with them weren't just from that one day. One day at work, I got a call from a good neighbour. "Helen, can you talk about your son and his wife?" she asked. I immediately apologised and promised to be right there. Apparently, when she returned from shopping, she noticed signs of a break-in. Checking the security footage, she was shocked to see the culprits were none other than my son and his wife. Though her place was a mess, nothing was stolen. Aware of my situation, she chose to contact me first. I left work early, got in touch with my son and his wife, and the 3 of us went to apologise. I kept saying, "I'm truly sorry," but my son and his wife showed no remorse. The neighbour looked displeased, but the matter was settled when I agreed to compensate for the broken window. On the way back, they said something unbelievable. "Why are old folks so petty? We just wanted to borrow some stuff." I was so stunned that I could only mutter, "What?" But they went on, not even looking at me. Yeah, we broke a window and made a mess, but we didn't steal anything. Isn't she overreacting? I couldn't believe my ears, and my son just nodded along. I was silent the whole time, unable to grasp what they were talking about. Seeing the scene unfold, I should have spoken my mind to them without getting scared. Not doing so showed my weakness. From then on, I noticed their increasingly aggressive behaviour. Fortunately, they didn't cause any major issues except for that incident with the neighbour. So I continued to provide for them, hoping that they'd one day be independent. When they asked for something, I'd buy it if I could afford it. My son wanted gadgets to socialise with his friends, and his wife wanted luxury brand items so she wouldn't feel inferior to others. Their demands escalated, and they began to rely on me for everything. Even on my days off, they'd call me over to do household chores. I started working tirelessly as they asked for more than just money. Living requires money, and they had neither the means nor the will to earn their own. I had no choice but to support them, no matter how tired I was. I committed to my job and did any chores they asked, even if I was exhausted. As a result, I was worn out. Dark circles formed under my eyes, my skin got rough, and dizziness became a regular companion. My son and his wife laughed at me, saying, "You look like a monster." Moreover, his wife pointed at me and said, "She's given up on being a woman." I didn't have the energy to fight back against such harsh words. I felt I was reaching my breaking point, but I believed that if I didn't keep going and working, both their lives and mine would fall apart. So I did my best, pushed through, and somehow managed to keep going. Truth be told, I had wanted to lean on someone and just give up a long time ago. One day, as I was doing chores at my son's house, a minor incident triggered a fight. I was exhausted and on edge from many days of strain, and every little action of theirs irked me. His wife made a snide comment, acting all high and mighty over just $300. My son, falling for her words, said, "We don't need such chump change," and handed back the $300 I had dutifully given them that day. They mocked and looked down on me, saying, "If you're going to give us money, bring a decent amount." Those words lit a fire in me. "Fine, I'll stop then," I said, without thinking of the future or considering their feelings. The words just spilled out of my mouth. They both tilted their heads in confusion, but when I started packing my things to leave, they burst out laughing. "Come on, Mom, stop joking. If we left you, you'd be all alone. You wouldn't have the guts to live on your own without your precious son and his wife. Helen, when did you become such a joker?" That joke wasn't funny at all. You had me worried for a second there. They thought I was just speaking out of frustration and wasn't serious about stopping the financial support. They continued to taunt me. "If you've got the guts, go ahead. But if you do, we'll cut ties with you. Think you can handle being all on your own? Come on, you'd want to take back the words in no time. There's no way your stubborn mum could do something like that, right?" They had no idea how backed into a corner I felt, yet they continued to treat me poorly. I wondered what was in it for me to keep supporting them, buying them what they wanted, and doing their housework. Wasn't I just being used and taken advantage of? It felt like I was getting the short end of the stick, taking advantage of my feelings, treating me like a lackey. Even when I was at my wits' end, they acted so cruelly. They might be family in name, but with the way they were acting, I couldn't see them as such. "I'm serious! Remember, you asked for this," I said. Yet they just chuckled, taking it as a joke. "Go ahead and try, but you'll regret it soon. I can already see it," my son said. Those words lit a fire in my fighting spirit. I was determined to show them just how valuable I am and how unforgivable it is to act so brutally towards me. As I packed up to head home, All I could think about was how I was going to stand my ground. I cut off all the support I had been giving my son and his wife, just as I had promised. No more money transfers, no financial aid, and no more helping around the house. Nothing. After living for the sake of my son and his wife, taking this action without considering their needs was something I had never done before. Now, I could take a break without worrying about them. I could spend my money for myself and do the chores just to my satisfaction. I realized firsthand how wonderful it feels to live this way. My son and his wife thought I'd never be able to sever ties with them and live on my own. But in reality, this life of independence that I had been yearning for over a decade was exactly what I got. Furthermore, I decided to put more pressure on them. The apartment my son and his wife lived in was one I had taken on the lease for them after they got evicted from their original place because they fell on hard times. Of course, I was also the one paying the rent. Having decided to cut off all support for them, it didn't make sense to continue helping with the rent, so I contacted the real estate agent and decided to cancel the lease. The person who managed the apartment, well aware of our situation, was accommodating. They were given a month's notice to leave, or else they would be reported. That night, I texted my son and his wife to tell them that if they didn't move out of the apartment within a month, it would be a matter for the authorities. They read the message immediately, and not even 5 minutes later, my phone was ringing. "Mom, what the hell is this? Where are we supposed to live?" my son shouted as soon as I answered. I could hear his wife freaking out in the background. "You might have forgotten, but I was the one paying for that apartment," I told him. "I said I was cutting off all help, didn't I? So of course I'd cancel the lease too." "We never agreed to that. You said you'd stop sending money, but we thought you'd continue with everything else," he replied. I chuckled at his naive expectation. "Really? After all the hurtful words, you still expect my support, just not the allowance?" It made my head spin to think of their ridiculously naive mindset. They treated me however they pleased, and even when I said I didn't like it, I always complied with their demands, giving them both money and time. All of this was out of a selfish wish of mine, hoping that they'd eventually stand on their own 2 feet. But I was wrong. They took advantage of me as long as they were pampered. It would have been much better to make my position clear and make them listen. I was the one who gave them the allowance, provided financial support, and did the housework for them. Any way you look at it, I held the upper hand, and they should have been grateful and respectful. Yet they treated me with complete disrespect, like I was some kind of servant, a mere tool, an ATM to be used however they liked. They even laughed at me when I was at my wits' end. Why did I try so hard for such an ungrateful couple? Even when they treated me unfairly, I kept my mouth shut and let them have their way. They never reciprocated my feelings. Instead, they just kept taking advantage of me. Only when I reached my breaking point did I realize how selfish they truly are, and how they never really saw me as family. They might have seen me as a tool, but never as family. Why didn't I realize this sooner? Why did I continue to give my all until I felt so overwhelmed? Why did I keep believing in them? Looking back, my past actions seem pitiful. Believing that one day they'd stand on their own, I tirelessly supported them, but all that meant nothing. As I regret the past, my anger towards them wells up. I need to give them a piece of my mind. I won't be satisfied until they admit their wrongs and apologize. Feeling this way, I spoke up again. "I'm not just stopping the allowance, but all other support too." "What are you thinking? That's not going to happen," my son tried to interject. "No buts, you get me? Your lives have always depended on me. If you upset me just once, if I ever felt like not helping you, you'd be done for. Lucky for you, I'm naive enough to keep hoping that maybe one day you'll be independent, that perhaps one day you won't need me to get by. That's right. Mum is kind. That's why you're not really going to abandon us, right? You just said those things in the heat of the moment, and now you can't take them back, so you're doing this, right? It's okay. We forgive you. Let's try to be a family again, okay? He said, trying to manipulate me. Don't be stupid. I've come to my senses. Despite all the support I've given, you two don't even want to be independent, do you? You just want to keep living comfortably on my dime, I said. Trying to backpedal, my son responded, That's not it. We did want to be independent, but we can't. We don't even feel like looking for jobs. My wife feels the same. We did our best in our own way. Almost laughing at his response, I thought, how dare they say they did their best in their own way? I've been keeping an eye on my son and his wife for years. Neither of them seemed to be making any effort to find jobs or live frugally. They were just living comfortably off me every single day. How does that translate to, we tried our best? Listen, Mum, we're really grateful for everything you've done. We couldn't put it into words, but you've always gone above and beyond for us. We always knew that we're able to live because of you and that we'd be lost without you. So why don't we try again? You need us too, right? He pleaded. Are you kidding me? I don't need you. On one hand, there's a guy who's still stuck on some trouble he caused 10 years ago, never settling into a steady job and just being a layabout. On the other hand, there's a woman acting like a stay-at-home wife, never admonishing or supporting her husband, just doing whatever she pleases. You think I need folks like you? You couldn't be more wrong. Do you have any idea how much I've had to endure because of you two? Day in and day out, working to make money for you. And even when I'm not working, I'm doing chores for you. There's no way that isn't tough. I've come to realise that I'm not naive enough to want to be family with you two after all that. Don't say such harsh things, Mum. We need you. Without someone like you supporting us all the time, we'd... My son kept insisting, ignoring my perspective. As I was wondering what to do next, I suddenly heard a shout, "Give me that!" And then his wife came on the line. Helen, to be honest, I've been frustrated with my husband's selfish behaviour too. Most men go out, work and support their family, but he just wanders around not working. For my sake, every day I regret marrying him. I feel just as wronged as you do. I'm a victim too. Please help me, even if it's just me. I can't do this without you. Stunned by her audacity, she continued, I'll do anything you need me to, whether it's housekeeping or anything else. Use me however you want. Please, Helen, don't abandon me. Then I could hear the couple arguing again over the phone, struggling to take control of the call. Annoyed by the noise, I frowned. It seemed like the phone got knocked out of hand and disconnected. Days passed without a call back from them. Apparently, their relationship deteriorated significantly after that incident, and they decided to divorce and go their separate ways. They blamed each other and started fighting over money until they finally got divorced. After the divorce, both tried to contact me, but by that time I had already blocked both of their numbers, so I never heard from them again. My son started working day and night at a factory job, barely making ends meet. His ex-wife tearfully ran back to her parents' house and confessed everything. They reprimanded her severely. She came to apologize, escorted by her parents, but she cried so much that I couldn't understand what she was saying. Since then, I've been living for myself. For 10 long years, I had been bound by their presence and never had a moment to cherish my own time. Living a life centered around myself felt incredibly refreshing and irresistible. Although I ended up alone without them, I found comfort in that. I have no idea what the future holds. There might be a time when I won't be able to live just for myself, but for now, I think I'm just going to live for me.